The massive crystal hall floated in space like a giant jewel. It was bigger than most moons and sparkled with lights from 1,000 different worlds. This was the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the galaxy made decisions that affected billions of lives. Inside the hall, strange creatures filled every corner. Some looked like walking crystals that sang instead of speaking. Others were clouds of gas that changed colors to communicate. Giant insect-like beings clicked and buzzed in their own language. Each species had their own special area with the right air, water, or energy they needed to survive. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked slowly toward the center of the hall. Her simple white spacesuit looked plain and boring compared to all the exotic aliens around her. She carried a small device that would translate her words into the hundreds of languages spoken here. Her hands shook slightly, but she kept her back straight and her head high. Sarah represented Earth, a small blue planet that most of these aliens had never heard of. She was here to ask for help, and she knew this might be humanity's only chance. The sickness had started 6 months ago. At first, doctors thought it was just a new flu. But this disease was different. It spread faster than anything they had ever seen. It killed people quickly, and nothing could stop it. Hospitals overflowed with the dying. Entire cities became empty as people fled or died. Scientists worked day and night to find a cure, but the disease seemed designed to kill humans specifically. It attacked their genes in ways that should have been impossible. Some doctors began to whisper that this was not natural. Someone had made this plague to kill humans. Now Earth was dying. 3 billion people were already dead. The government systems were falling apart. Food was running out. If help did not come soon, humanity would be extinct within a year. Sarah reached the speaking platform in the center of the hall. It was a small circle of light surrounded by thousands of alien delegates. She looked up at the viewing areas that rose like stadium seats in all directions. Every eye, sensor, and detection device was focused on her. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Sarah began. Her voice was amplified so every being in the hall could hear her. I am Ambassador Sarah Chen, speaking for the people of Earth. We come before you in our darkest hour seeking help from our galactic neighbors. A sound like wind chimes came from the crystal beings. Sarah's translator told her this was laughter. Not the kind laughter of friends, but the cruel laughter of those who thought something was funny when it was not. We know our species is young compared to yours, Sarah continued. We have only just learned to travel between stars. We have only recently discovered that we are not alone in the universe. But we have much to offer. She activated a holographic display that showed Earth's achievements. Images of art, music, literature, and science appeared in the air around her. She showed them human cities, the first moon landing, and peaceful cooperation between different human cultures. Humans are creative and adaptable, Sarah said. We learn quickly and work together when faced with challenges. We have survived ice ages, wars, and natural disasters. We have built great civilizations and created beautiful things. We want to join the galactic community and contribute to the greater good. More sounds of amusement came from the alien delegates. A massive creature that looked like a walking tree creaked in what Sarah's translator said was contempt, a pool of living. Metal rippled with what could only be discussed. Our people are dying from a plague that our science cannot cure, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger despite the hostile audience. We believe that technology exists in this galaxy to save them. We are not asking for charity. We offer fair trade, knowledge exchange, and friendship. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of joining this great community. The laughter grew louder. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with shame and anger, but she forced herself to continue. Humans have always been explorers and builders. We dream of traveling to distant stars and meeting new species. We want to learn from you and share what we have learned. Please do not let our species die when you have the power to save us. Finally, the laughter died down. A huge insect-like creature with rainbow-colored eyes stood up in the highest viewing area. This was Speaker Thane Vell, the leader of the Galactic Council. When he spoke, his voice was like the buzzing of 1,000 angry bees. Human, Speaker Thane Vell said, your plea has been heard and considered. The Council has reviewed your species and your world. We have studied your history, your technology, and your potential. Sarah waited, hoping against hope that help would come. The decision is unanimous, the speaker continued. Humanity is too primitive to join galactic civilization. You are too violent, too chaotic, and too unpredictable. Your technology is laughably basic. Your lifespans are too short to be useful. Your cultures cannot even agree among themselves. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had expected rejection was possible, but not this level of cruelty. However, Speaker Thainvel continued, "We are not without mercy. If your species survives its current troubles, you may reapply for consideration in 1,000 years. Perhaps by then you will have learned discipline and order. Perhaps you will have proven yourselves worthy to serve the greater civilizations as laborers or servants." The hall erupted in what Sarah now realized was the alien equivalent of applause. Clicks, whistles, color changes, and musical tones filled the air as the delegates celebrated this decision. 2 large robotic guards moved toward Sarah. She realized her time was over. They were here to escort her out, probably back to her small ship for the long journey home to a dying world. But Sarah was not finished. She stepped forward and activated her translator to maximum volume. "You have made a terrible mistake," she said. Her voice cut through the celebration like a knife. The hall grew quiet as thousands of aliens turned to stare at this small human who dared to speak again. "You sit here in your beautiful hall, surrounded by your ancient technologies and your old power, and you think you know everything. You think you understand humans because you have watched us for a few years, but you do not know us at all." Speaker Thainvel's compound eyes flashed with anger. "Remove this creature before—" "Humans remember," Sarah interrupted, her voice now filled with a cold fury that made even the guards pause. "We remember kindness and we remember cruelty. We remember our friends and we remember our enemies. You could have helped us and gained loyal allies. Instead, you chose to laugh at our suffering." She looked around the hall, meeting as many alien gazes as she could. "You think we are weak because we ask for help. You think we are primitive because our technology is young. You think we are finished because we face extinction. But you do not understand the most important thing about humans." The hall was completely silent now. Even Speaker Thainvel seemed to be listening. "We do not give up," Sarah said. "We do not surrender. And we do not forgive those who stand by and watch while we die when they could have helped. You have shown us who you really are today. Now you will learn who we really are." The guards finally reached her and began to move her toward the exit, but Sarah's voice carried across the hall as they dragged her away. "Humanity will remember this day. We will remember your laughter and your cruelty, and we will remember that when we needed help, the Great Galactic Council chose to be our enemy instead of our friend. You will regret this decision." The great doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. Sarah was gone, but her words seemed to echo in the sudden silence of the hall. Speaker Thainvel looked around at his fellow council members. For just a moment he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. It felt almost like worry, but the feeling passed quickly. After all, what could one primitive species do against the might of the entire galaxy? Soon the business of the council resumed. The humans were forgotten as more important matters demanded attention. None of them noticed the small recording devices that had been hidden throughout the hall, or realized that every word spoken had been transmitted to a ship waiting in the darkness between stars. The humans were listening. And they were learning. 3 months had passed since Sarah Chen's rejection at the Galactic Council. The Crystal Hall still floated in space, but now its lights seemed dimmer. The powerful aliens inside continued their daily business, making decisions that affected countless worlds. But something had changed, though most of them did not notice it yet. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the Vorthak Consortium had been extracting precious metals for over 2,000 years. The native species, the Keplerians, worked in the deep mines for barely enough food to survive. They were a peaceful people who looked like large otters with opposable thumbs. Once they had built beautiful cities and created wonderful art. Now they lived in concrete boxes and spent their lives digging in the dark. Foreman Vorthak Prime floated above the main mining complex in his environmental suit. His species looked like clouds of purple gas, but they were actually billions of tiny organisms working together as one mind. He was reviewing the monthly production reports when his communication device buzzed. "Foreman," came the voice of his assistant. "The Keplerians are asking for better air filters in the deep mines again. They say the dust is making their children sick." Vorthak Prime's gaseous form rippled with what his species called amusement. "Tell them that improved filters cost money. If they want better equipment, they need to work harder. Increase their quotas by 10%. This was how the galaxy worked. The old powerful species stayed in control by keeping everyone else dependent on them. They controlled the technology, the resources, and the trade routes. Younger species could work for them, but they could never become equal partners. On the military world of Sigma Draconis, the Arconian Empire was conducting war games. Their massive ships moved through space like metal mountains, each one capable of destroying entire planets. Admiral Crixthane stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the exercises with satisfaction. The Arconians looked like giant lizards covered in metal armor that grew from their bodies. They had been the galaxy's military power for 10,000 years. No one dared challenge them because their weapons could turn suns into black holes. "Admiral," reported his weapons officer, "all target planets have been successfully destroyed. The new antimatter torpedoes performed exactly as expected." "Excellent," Admiral Crixthane replied. "Send a message to the Outer Rim colonies. Let them know what happens to worlds that do not pay their protection taxes on time." This, too, was part of the system. The Arconians kept peace in the galaxy by making sure everyone was too afraid to fight. They called it order. Their victims called it tyranny. Far away on Earth, the situation was growing worse. The plague continued to spread, and now over 4 billion humans were dead. The governments of most countries had collapsed. Cities were empty except for the sick and the dying. The few remaining scientists worked desperately in underground laboratories trying to find a cure. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in Luna Base, humanity's main research facility on the moon. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Around him, dozens of scientists worked at computers and laboratory equipment. They had been working for months without rest, but they were no closer to stopping the plague. "Doctor," called his assistant, Dr. Lisa Park, "we have the latest test results from Earth. The infection rate is still climbing." Marcus looked at the data on his screen and felt sick. The numbers were terrible, but there was something else that bothered him. The plague was too perfect. It attacked human genetics in ways that seemed almost designed. No natural disease worked like this. "Lisa," he said slowly, "run a full genetic analysis of the plague. I want to know everything about how it was made. Lisa looked confused. "Sir, this is a natural virus. We've confirmed that multiple times." "Run the analysis anyway," Marcus ordered. "Something about this disease does not feel right." While the scientists worked, Commander Elena Vasquez was leading a different kind of mission. She was in charge of humanity's small space defense force. Most of their ships were old and weak compared to alien technology. But Elena was not planning to fight a traditional war. Her ship, the Defiance, was hiding in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was painted black and equipped with every stealth system humans had ever invented. Elena and her crew were watching and listening to alien communications that passed through the solar system. "Commander," reported her communications officer, "we're picking up another Galactic Council transmission. It's heavily encrypted, but our computers are working on it." Elena nodded. For months, her teams had been intercepting alien messages. Most were routine business communications, but some contained information about military movements, trade routes, and political decisions. Slowly, humanity was learning how the galaxy really worked. The truth was more disturbing than they had expected. The Galactic Council was not a peaceful organization of equals. It was a system designed to keep a few old species in power while everyone else served them. Younger species were given just enough technology to be useful, but never enough to become independent. Dr. Webb's analysis of the plague was almost complete when he made a discovery that changed everything. His hands shook as he stared at the data on his screen. "This is impossible," he whispered. Dr. Park looked over his shoulder. "What did you find?" "The plague," Marcus said, his voice barely audible. "It contains genetic markers from 7 different alien species. This is not a natural disease. Someone engineered this to kill humans, specifically." The laboratory fell silent as the other scientists stopped, their work to listen. "That means—" Dr. Park began. "That means the Galactic Council did not just refuse to help us," Marcus finished. "They are the ones trying to kill us." Meanwhile, in the depths of Earth's remaining cities, people like Maria Santos were fighting to keep civilization alive. Maria was an engineer who had once designed buildings. Now she led a group of survivors in the ruins of Mexico City. They called themselves the Underground, and they had a secret. While the aliens thought humans were simply dying quietly, Maria and thousands like her were actually building something. In hidden factories beneath the rubble of destroyed cities, They were working on projects that the Galactic Council would never have expected from a primitive species. How are the new fabricators working? Maria asked her chief assistant, a young man named Carlos. Better than expected, Carlos replied. We should have the first prototype ready within a week. Maria smiled grimly. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They thought humans would give up when faced with extinction. Instead, the plague had freed humanity from all the rules and limitations that had held them back. When you are already dying, you can take risks that would have seemed impossible before. Commander Vasquez received an urgent message from Earth while her ship was monitoring an alien supply convoy. The message was from Dr. Webb, and it contained information that made her blood run cold. All units, she broadcast to her small fleet. We have confirmation that the plague was created by the Galactic Council. This is not a natural disaster. This is genocide. The response from her crews was immediate and angry. These men and women had watched their families die while begging the aliens for help. Now they knew the truth. The aliens were not just refusing to help. They were the ones doing the killing. What are your orders, Commander? Asked the captain of another ship. Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, alien fleets were patrolling their territory with weapons that could destroy planets. Earth had maybe a few hundred old ships and some outdated weapons. By any reasonable measure, humanity had no chance of fighting back. But Elena was beginning to understand something important about her species. Humans were not reasonable when someone they loved was in danger. Begin Phase 2 of the monitoring operation, she ordered. I want to know the location, strength, and weakness of every alien installation within 50 light-years of Earth. And start working on the new ship designs. We're going to need them. In the Crystal Hall of the Galactic Council, Speaker Thane Vell was reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Everything seemed normal. The mining operations were profitable. The military exercises were successful. The younger species were staying in their proper places. There was one small note about a plague affecting a primitive world called Earth, but such things happened all the time. Primitive species often destroyed themselves through disease, war, or environmental collapse. It was just the natural order of things. Speaker Thane Vell dismissed the report without giving it much thought. After all, what could one dying species possibly do to threaten the established order of the galaxy? He had no idea that the humans were already planning their answer to that question. The underground factory hummed with activity. Deep beneath the ruins of what had once been Berlin, Maria Santos supervised the construction of something that should not have existed. Workers moved quickly between massive machines that built parts for a project that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. How many more do we need? Asked Carlos, wiping sweat from his face as he climbed down from one of the larger fabrication units. 50 more engine cores, Maria replied, checking her tablet. The Luna base team says they can handle the computer systems, but we need to provide the basic propulsion units. Around them, the factory stretched for kilometers through old subway tunnels and basement complexes. This was just one of dozens of similar facilities hidden beneath Earth's dead cities. The aliens watching from space saw only empty ruins. They had no idea that beneath the surface, humanity was building the largest industrial complex in their history. The work was dangerous. Many of the workers were sick with the plague, but they kept building anyway. They knew they were probably going to die, so they wanted to make sure their deaths meant something. Every engine they completed, every weapon they assembled, every piece of armor they forged was a message to the galaxy. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. On the moon, Dr. Marcus Webb was making discoveries that changed how humans understood the universe. His laboratory had grown from a small research station to a massive complex that sprawled across Luna's surface. Scientists from every remaining Earth nation worked together here, sharing knowledge and resources in ways that had never happened before. The quantum resonance patterns are fascinating, Dr. Webb explained to his team. The aliens use technology that is thousands of years more advanced than ours, but they haven't really improved it in centuries. They just keep using the same old designs. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her workstation. Why would they stop advancing? Because their society discourages change, Marcus replied. The council species stay in power by controlling technology. If someone invents something new, it might upset the balance. So they make sure innovation happens very slowly, if at all. This revelation was crucial to humanity's survival plans. The aliens had better technology, But humans had something the aliens had lost: the desperate creativity that comes from having nothing left to lose. In the asteroid belt, Commander Elena Vasquez watched her fleet grow larger every day. What had started as a handful of Earth's old military ships was becoming something entirely different. Using plans developed by Dr. Webb's team and parts manufactured in Maria's underground factories, they were building vessels that combined human engineering with stolen alien technology. "The new ships are ready for their first test," reported Captain Rodriguez from the bridge of the Retribution. "All systems are showing green." Elena looked out at her small fleet. They didn't look like traditional warships. Human designers had learned from watching alien conflicts that bigger was not always better. Instead, they had built fast, clever ships that could appear and disappear like ghosts. "Begin the stealth test," Elena ordered. "Let's see if we can sneak past the Arconian patrol without being detected." The human ships activated their new cloaking systems and moved toward the edge of the solar system. These systems worked differently from alien stealth technology. Instead of bending light or disrupting sensors, they used a combination of techniques that made the ships look like space debris or natural phenomena. 20 minutes later, the test was complete. The massive Arconian patrol ship had passed within a few thousand kilometers of the human fleet, without detecting them. Elena smiled grimly. Phase 3 could begin. Back on Earth, in the hidden command center beneath the ruins of Geneva, Sarah Chen was no longer just a diplomat. She had become the coordinator for humanity's resistance network. Reports came to her from around the world and throughout the solar system. Each report brought news of progress, setbacks, and small victories. "The Beijing facility has completed their first batch of quantum processors," reported her assistant, a former United Nations security officer named James Wright. "The Sydney team has cracked another level of the alien communication encryption. And Commander Vasquez reports that the first stealth raid was successful." Sarah nodded as she reviewed the reports. It had been 8 months since her humiliation at the Galactic Council. In that time, humanity had accomplished things that should have taken decades or centuries. The threat of extinction had focused human creativity in ways that peaceful times never could. "What about the plague research?" Sarah asked. "Dr. Webb believes he's close to a breakthrough," James replied. "Not a cure exactly, but something that might be even better." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Better than a cure?" "He won't say exactly what he's found, but he seems excited about it. He's asked for a direct communication link to all the underground facilities. Says he has something to share with everyone." An hour later, scientists and resistance leaders around the world gathered around their communication screens. Dr. Webb appeared on every screen, looking tired but determined. "My friends," he began, "I have news about the plague that will change everything we thought we knew about our situation." The screens showed charts and genetic diagrams that were too complex for most people to understand. But Dr. Webb's explanation was clear. The aliens designed this plague to kill us by attacking our genetic structure. But genes are funny things. Sometimes when you try to damage them, you accidentally improve them instead. The plague has been causing mutations in some humans. Most of these mutations are harmful, but some are not. Dr. Park appeared beside him on the screen. "We've identified several thousand humans who have not only survived the plague, but seem to be immune to it. More importantly, these survivors show enhanced cognitive abilities, improved reflexes, and stronger immune systems. The aliens tried to destroy us," Dr. Webb continued, "but instead they may have accidentally triggered the next stage of human evolution. The survivors are not just immune to the plague. They're better than baseline humans in almost every measurable way." This news spread through the resistance network like wildfire. Not only were humans going to survive, but they were going to emerge from this crisis stronger than before. The aliens had tried to commit genocide and instead had created a superior version of humanity. Commander Vasquez received this news while her fleet was preparing for their first real combat mission. The target was a Galactic Council monitoring station on the edge of the solar system. It was heavily defended and considered impossible to attack with primitive human technology. "All ships, this is Commander Vasquez," she broadcast to her fleet. "You've all heard Dr. Webb's report. The aliens didn't just try to kill us. They tried to keep us from becoming what we were meant to be. Today we show them what humans can accomplish when we stop asking for permission." The attack began at exactly midnight, Earth time. The human ships appeared from seemingly empty space, moving faster than the alien sensors could track. Instead of trying to match the aliens' powerful weapons, They used tactics that no galactic military had seen in thousands of years. They attacked from multiple directions at once. They used the monitoring station's own sensors against it by feeding false information into its systems. They deployed weapons that adapted and changed during the battle, making it impossible for the station's defenses to adjust. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it was over, the monitoring station was completely destroyed and the human fleet had disappeared back into the darkness between planets. Not a single human ship had been lost. More importantly, the attack had captured the station's entire database. For the first time, humans had complete information about Galactic Council military positions, trade routes, and communication networks throughout this part of the galaxy. On the Crystal Hall of the Galactic Council, emergency alarms were ringing for the first time in centuries. Speaker Thane Vell stood before the assembled delegates, his compound eyes reflecting confusion and anger. "The monitoring station at Sol 3 has been destroyed," he announced. "The attackers used advanced stealth technology and weapons that we do not recognize. They appear to have escaped without losses." A murmur of concern rippled through the hall. The delegates were not used to hearing about successful attacks on council facilities. "Who could have done this?" asked the Zilithian ambassador, her crystalline form chiming with worry. "Our preliminary analysis suggests the attackers came from the Sol system," Speaker Thaneville replied. "The same system where the primitive humans are supposed to be dying from plague." The hall fell silent as the implications sank in. If the humans were responsible for this attack, then everything the Council thought they knew about this species was wrong. "Increase patrols around all Council facilities," Speaker Thaneville ordered, "and send a battle fleet to the Sol system. If the humans are responsible for this, they must be eliminated immediately." But even as he gave these orders, Speaker Thaneville felt something he had not experienced in his long life. For the first time, he was afraid of a species that the Council had dismissed as primitive and harmless. In the darkness between stars, the human fleet was already moving to their next target. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and the aliens were about to learn that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. The Galactic Council battle fleet was the largest military force assembled in over 500 years. 50 massive Arconian dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying planets, moved through space toward the Sol system. Behind them came hundreds of smaller ships from a dozen different species, all armed with weapons that could shatter moons. Admiral Crixthane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the star called Sol grow larger on his screens. He was confident this would be an easy mission. Whatever weapons the humans had used to destroy the monitoring station, they could not possibly stand against the might of the Council's full military power. "Admiral," reported his sensor officer, "we are detecting no major military installations in the system. The human homeworld shows massive population decline, consistent with plague devastation. There are some small installations on their moon and asteroid belt, but nothing that poses a significant threat." Admiral Crixthane nodded with satisfaction. The humans had managed one lucky strike, but now they would face the consequences of attacking the Council. "Open a communication channel to the human settlements," he ordered. "Let them know they have one chance to surrender before we demonstrate the price of defying galactic order." The message was broadcast throughout the Sol system. "Humans of Earth, this is Admiral Crixthane of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You have committed acts of terrorism against Council installations. Surrender immediately and submit to justice, or your entire species will be eliminated." The response came from Luna Base, where Dr. Marcus Webb sat in the communication center. His voice was calm and steady as he replied to the alien fleet. "Admiral Crixthane, this is Dr. Marcus Webb speaking for the human species. We have received your ultimatum. Our response is this. You came to our system to finish the genocide you started with your plague. You will find that we are not the helpless victims you expected." Admiral Crixthane's armored face twisted with anger. How dare these primitives speak to him with such disrespect? "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target their moon base first. Make sure they understand the futility of resistance." The Arconian ships began charging their main weapons, massive energy cannons that could punch through planetary crust. But as they prepared to fire, something impossible happened. Space around the Council fleet began to ripple and twist. Human ships appeared from nowhere, materializing out of what had seemed like empty space. But these were not the primitive vessels the aliens expected. These ships moved with impossible grace, their hulls reflecting strange energies that bent light around them. "Admiral," shouted the sensor officer, "we have multiple contacts appearing throughout the fleet." How did they get so close without being detected? Before Admiral Crixthane could answer, the human attack began. But it was unlike any battle the galaxy had seen in millennia. The human ships did not try to match the aliens' firepower. Instead, they used speed, stealth, and tactics that seemed to come from nowhere. Commander Elena Vasquez led the attack from the bridge of her flagship, the Vengeance. Around her, displays showed the positions of every enemy ship and the coordinated movements of her own fleet. "All units, execute Pattern Omega," she commanded. "Remember, we are not trying to destroy them all. We just need to prove that we can." The human ships moved like dancers in a deadly ballet. They appeared next to alien vessels, delivered precise strikes, and vanished before the enemy could respond. Their weapons were strange combinations of human innovation and alien technology, creating effects that the Council's defenses could not predict or counter. One human ship appeared directly beneath an Arconian dreadnought and fired a weapon that caused the massive alien vessel to simply stop moving. Its engines went dark, its weapons powered down, and its life support systems began to fail. Another group of human ships surrounded a Zelithian cruiser and deployed devices that interfered with the aliens' crystalline communication network. The ship's crew found themselves unable to coordinate their defenses or call for help. Throughout the battle, the human ships moved with perfect coordination, while the alien fleet struggled to adapt to tactics they had never encountered. The Council forces had spent centuries fighting ceremonial battles between established powers, following rules and traditions that had become rigid and predictable. The humans followed no such rules. They had learned their tactics from desperation and innovation. Every move was designed to exploit weaknesses that the aliens did not know they had. Admiral Crixthane watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was torn apart by ships that should not have been able to challenge a single one of his dreadnoughts. Worse, he was beginning to realize that the humans were holding back. They were not trying to destroy his fleet completely. They were sending a message. "Admiral," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human commander." Commander Vasquez's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined, and her eyes held a coldness that made even the massive Arconian warrior step back. "Admiral Crixthane," she said, "you came here to finish what your council started. You came here to complete the murder of our species. But you have made a fundamental error in your understanding of humanity." Around the Admiral's ship, the battle continued. His fleet was being systematically disabled, ship by ship, while suffering minimal losses to the human forces. "You thought we would die quietly and alone," Commander Vasquez continued. "You thought fear would paralyze us. You thought desperation would make us weak. But you understand nothing about humans. Fear makes us angry. Desperation makes us creative. And the threat of extinction makes us unstoppable." Admiral Crixthane tried to speak, but Commander Vasquez was not finished. "For months, you have been receiving reports that the humans were dying from plague. Those reports were partially true. Many of us did die. But those who survived became something new, something you never expected to face." On his screens, Admiral Crixthane could see that more than half of his fleet was now disabled or destroyed. The remaining ships were trying to retreat, but the humans seemed to be everywhere at once. "This battle is not about victory," Commander Vasquez said. "This is about sending a message to every species in the galaxy. The Galactic Council's reign of terror is over. The old order that kept civilizations enslaved and prevented progress is finished. We are offering you one chance to withdraw and return to your masters with this message. Humanity has stood up." Admiral Crixthane looked around his bridge at his panicking crew. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Arconian Empire, was being defeated by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive. The implications were staggering. "What are your terms?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Take your remaining ships and leave our system," Commander Vasquez replied. "Tell the Council that humanity rejects their authority. Tell them that we will no longer tolerate their oppression of younger species, and tell them that if they try to attack us again, we will not be as merciful as we have been today." The Battle of Sol lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the most powerful military force in galactic history was retreating in defeat. Over 60% of the Council fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The human losses were minimal. More importantly, the entire battle had been broadcast across the galaxy through the hijacked Zilithian communication network. Every species in Council space had watched the impossible happen. The mighty Galactic Council military had been defeated by a species they claimed was too primitive to matter. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the Keplerians stopped their work to watch the broadcast. For the first time in 2,000 years, they began to think that freedom might be possible. On the industrial world of Proxima Centauri, the enslaved Proximans whispered among themselves about the humans who had dared to fight back. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds throughout Council space. Back on Earth in the underground command center, Sarah Chen watched the retreating alien fleet with satisfaction. Phase 4 had been completed successfully. The galaxy now knew that humanity would not submit to tyranny, but Sarah also knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not accept this defeat quietly. They would try to strike back with everything they had. That was exactly what humanity was counting on. The aliens still did not understand what they were facing. They thought this was about one species fighting for survival. They had no idea that humanity was fighting to liberate the entire galaxy. "Send the message to all resistance cells," Sarah ordered. "Phase 5 begins now. It's time to bring down the Council once and for all." The revolution that would reshape galactic civilization was about to begin, and the humans were ready to lead it. The Crystal Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen chaos like this. Emergency sessions had been called every day for the past month, but no one could agree on what to do about the human problem. The defeat of Admiral Crixthane's fleet had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. Speaker Thane Vel stood before the assembled delegates, but his usual commanding presence was gone. His compound eyes reflected fear and uncertainty as he tried to maintain order in the hall. "The situation is worse than we initially believed," he announced. "The human infection is spreading throughout our territory. 17 worlds have declared independence from Council authority. Mining operations on 43 planets have stopped due to worker rebellions. Our military estimates that we are facing coordinated uprisings on over 200 worlds." The delegates erupted in angry buzzing, clicking, and color flashing. The Zilithian ambassador's crystalline form chimed with panic. "How is this possible? These species have been under our control for thousands of years. The humans have been broadcasting messages throughout our communication network," Speaker Thane Vel replied. "They are encouraging rebellion and offering technological assistance to any species that opposes Council rule." In the viewing galleries, representatives from younger species listened with growing excitement. For the first time in their civilization's histories, they had seen proof that the Council could be defeated. The humans had shown them that the old powers were not invincible, but the real shock was yet to come. The great doors of the assembly hall opened, and a figure walked in that should not have been there. Sarah Chen strode down the central aisle, but she was not alone. Behind her came a group of enhanced humans, their presence somehow disrupting the energy fields that powered much of the hall's technology. Sarah no longer wore the simple spacesuit she had worn during her first visit. Now she was dressed in armor that seemed to shift and change as she moved, adapting to different environments and energy fields. Her eyes held a confidence that had not been there before. But the most shocking thing about her entrance was that she was not escorted by guards. The Council's security forces had simply stepped aside and let her pass. "Honored delegates," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall without any amplification device. "I have returned as promised. But this time I come not as a supplicant begging for mercy. I come as the voice of the new galactic order." Speaker Thane Vel's voice buzzed with rage. "How dare you enter the sacred hall? Guards, remove this creature immediately." But the guards did not move. They stood frozen in place, their weapons powered down. Behind them, more humans entered the hall. These were the evolved survivors of the plague, and their mere presence seemed to interfere with Council technology. Dr. Marcus Webb walked beside Sarah, carrying a device that looked like a simple briefcase. Behind him came Commander Vasquez, no longer wearing a military uniform but dressed in the same adaptive armor as the other humans. "You cannot arrest us," Dr. Webb said calmly, "because we control your security systems. We control your communication networks. We control your transportation systems. In fact, we have been controlling them for months." He opened his briefcase and activated a holographic display that filled the center of the hall. The display showed the Galactic Communication Network, but it was not the same network the Council thought they controlled. While you were congratulating yourselves on your technological superiority, Dr. Webb continued, we were learning how your systems actually work. We discovered that for all your advanced science, you have become lazy and predictable. Your security protocols have not changed in centuries. Your communication codes follow patterns that our computers can easily crack. The display showed message traffic flowing throughout Council space, but much of it was highlighted in red. Sarah stepped forward to explain. Red indicates communications that have been intercepted, analyzed, and in many cases modified by human systems, she said. For the past 6 months, we have been reading your mail, listening to your conversations, and occasionally sending false information to disrupt your operations. Speaker Thainvell's compound eyes bulged with shock. Impossible. Our quantum encryption cannot be broken by primitive technology. You are correct, Dr. Webb replied with a smile. It cannot be broken by primitive technology. But we are no longer primitive. The plague you designed to kill us has instead made us into something you never expected to face. Commander Vasquez activated another display that showed military positions throughout the galaxy. Every Council military installation, every fleet position, every defensive system is now known to us. We have been watching you for months, learning your weaknesses and preparing for this moment. The hall erupted in panic as delegates realized the full extent of the human infiltration. But Sarah raised her hand and somehow her gesture commanded attention from the entire assembly. We did not come here for revenge, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. We came here to offer you a choice. Speaker Thainvell tried to regain control. You are in no position to offer us anything. This council represents the combined might of hundreds of advanced civilizations. Does it? Sarah asked. Let me show you what your combined might actually looks like today. The display changed to show a map of Council space. Huge sections were now colored differently, indicating worlds that had declared independence or were in open rebellion. Trade routes were blocked. Military fleets were stranded without supplies. The carefully maintained order of galactic civilization was collapsing. 96 species have declared independence from Council authority, Commander Vasquez reported. 43 more are in active negotiation with human representatives. Your military response has been ineffective because you cannot fight on so many fronts at once. More importantly, Dr. Webb added, you cannot fight an enemy that understands your technology better than you do. He activated another display that showed the genetic structure of the plague. But now the image was annotated with notes and modifications that the original designers had never imagined. Your biological weapon was intended to eliminate humanity, Dr. Webb explained. Instead, it provided us with the key to understanding genetic engineering on a level you never achieved. We have not only cured the plague, we have improved upon it. The meaning of his words sank in slowly. The council delegates began to realize what the humans were saying. Yes, Sarah confirmed, reading their expressions. We have created our own biological weapons. Weapons that target the specific genetic markers of council species. We could release these weapons at any time and eliminate your entire leadership within weeks. The hall fell completely silent. Even Speaker Thainvell seemed unable to speak. But we will not do that, Sarah continued, because we are not like you. We do not believe in genocide, even when it is committed against our enemies. She walked to the center of the hall, standing where she had once begged for help that never came. Instead, we offer you a choice. You can continue to fight us and face the complete destruction of your galactic order. Your military will be defeated. Your worlds will rebel and your species will be remembered as tyrants who fell because they could not adapt to change. She paused to let this sink in before continuing. Or you can accept that the old order is finished and help us build something better. A galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. A system where technological advancement is shared instead of hoarded. A community where younger species are partners instead of slaves. Speaker Thainvell found his voice at last. And if we refuse? What then? Sarah smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Then you will discover what humans are truly capable of when they stop holding back. The attack on your fleet at Sol was a demonstration, not a real battle. We were showing you that we could defeat you while using only a fraction of our capabilities. Commander Vasquez stepped forward. The human fleet that defeated Admiral Crixthane represented less than 5% of our total military strength. We have been building ships and weapons that combine our innovation with your technology. The result is a military force unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. The choice is yours, Sarah concluded. Evolution or extinction? Join us in building a better galaxy, or be swept aside by the tide of change you cannot stop. The assembly hall fell silent as the delegates considered their options. They had come here expecting to deal with a primitive species asking for scraps. Instead, they found themselves facing the architects of a galactic revolution. Speaker Thane Vell looked around at his fellow council members, seeing fear, anger, and resignation in their alien faces. The old order that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was ending. What exactly are you proposing? He asked finally. Sarah Chen, who had once stood in this hall as a desperate supplicant, now stood as humanity's representative in the founding of a new galactic civilization. We are proposing, she said, that this council be dissolved and replaced with a true democratic federation. A government where all species have a voice, where technology is shared for the benefit of everyone, and where the mistakes of the past are never repeated. The vote that followed would be remembered as the moment galactic civilization chose to evolve rather than die. It was not unanimous, and it did not come without resistance.